Welcome back to A Nightmare on Fear Street. I am still Sheree, and today I am joined by Alix and Keir from Switchblade Cinema. They made a really awesome body horror breakup movie, and so I won't let them have peace. Um, yay! Yay! Go watch Kill Your Lover now. But anyways, we're going to start off with some very easy questions. We'd like to get nosy and get to know people a bit better over here. So we're going to ask you hard stuff like, what's your horror origin story?
Want to go first?
I wish I had a more exciting horror origin story. It's just my father was super into old sci-fi and B movies, and so I grew up watching things like Earth versus the Flying Saucers and The Fiend Without a Face. And as you're watching that sort of stuff, you also start getting into some of the more thoughtful, sort of movies like The Day the Earth Stood Still. And then I just got super hooked on the Twilight Zone.
Yes.
And then at a certain point after that, and watching a lot of Are You Afraid of the Dark, you branch into the grown-up stuff, and you start going, I'll check out David Cronenberg's The Fly, and at a certain point I saw John Carpenter's The Thing, and it just kind of changed my life, I guess is what you could say. And just
a match made in heaven.
Just at a certain point I just knew that I wanted to do horrible things to people.
Fictionally.
Fictionally, yes, it's fiction.
I mean, there's no law here. It's fine. What about you, Alix?
So yeah, my story is always a bit complicated and overthought, but then so am I. So I think what I've kind of figured out in time is I thought I didn't like horror movies until I was about 20, but looking back at being a child and a teenager, I was very much into some twisted manga stuff. I was reading all the dark and disturbing morbid stuff. It's Elfenlied was very formative for me, so people who know about Elfenlied are but it's I don't think I necessarily understood that creepy stuff was the same as, I think there were just a lot of slasher movies coming out, and as a teenager I was like, oh no, I don't like being scared, but I was morbid as hell. So it's just I hadn't figured it out yet, but it was very much there from the start. So it sort of creeped up on me, which seems very on point. And then movie wise, it wasn't until I met this one and he gave me the bug, and I started with Evil Dead, the remake 2013, and It Follows was sort of my reincarnation, if you will. But I'd watched Alien and stuff like that and loved Alien, so I don't know who I was kidding.
Well, also, you like fucked up shit, you like Old Boy and stuff like that.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. I saw Old Boy for the first time during the re-release last year, and the local theater is really cool. And they're like, we haven't seen you in a while. Here's a child's ticket to it. So I paid $5 to have
amazing experience. Wow.
I just like the idea of child's tickets to Old Boy. The idea of somebody walks up, I want to see Old Boy. Can I get a child's ticket?
Amazing. What did you think?
It changed my life. And I'm happy I saw it then, because now I see the references in so many other movies like Monkey Man. I was like, I see you, Dev Patel. I see you. Yeah.
Even in great. Deadpool Wolverine, there was an Old Boy.
Oh yeah. Everyone's doing the sidetrack fight, and I'm like,
listen. Yeah.
It's been done before and it was done better.
Exactly. You cannot take a hammer into an elevator anymore without us going, Old Boy did it.
But homage, we don't mind an homage. It's not to shit. It's just to say, they did it.
Right. I just think it's that iconic where we're just I know where that hammer is going. I've been here before. But yes, it's amazing. I found out that he was really eating real squid, which was very much against his religion. So he prayed in between each take. And I was like, I don't know how to feel.
He asked the octopus for forgiveness, and it just did that. I don't know what, that just makes my heart just so sad,
Yeah. And knowing there were multiple takes, so he had to do it multiple times. I'm just that is because it's a sick effect, but also it's it
horrifying.
Yeah, I have to own that at some point. I just go ahead and buy it, I guess. But what is your current favorite scary movie?
Ooh, current favorite. Well, The Substance has definitely overwhelmed my senses in a big way. I don't know. Have you seen it yet?
Not yet. I'm hoping to catch it in a festival soon because everybody's talking about it.
When you see it, you will know why Keir and I like it a lot. It's not dissimilar from something we made.
Ooh.
In the sense of big body horror moments, not so subtle stuff.
A lot of allegory.
A lot of allegory.
Not too subtle allegory.
Yes, Coralie Fagia. Yes, you do it. So other people will be like, oh, okay. I guess it's okay then.
I can't wait. Because it's one of the ones people like cannot stop talking about. So that usually means it's either really good or really bad. And either way, there's a story.
Honestly,
and so
I've been saying that like in its own small way, it has actually changed my life a little bit. Like in quite a but it'd be easier to talk about it once you've seen it. So I don't want to give too much away. And I'm also trying not to overhype it. Like I know it's a very polarizing film as well. So that's fine. We're here for it. We want to have the conversations. Anyway, I've stolen The Substance now. So you get to
When you say, do you mean current as in a recent movie, or do you mean current as in what I'm currently feel is my favorite movie, like scary movie?
What you currently feel is your favorite scary movie? Because I know it changes daily because I ask people all the time. Yeah.
Well, for me, it's just it's always going to be The Thing. It's just like The Thing was just like it was the movie that kind of just like really. Just, you know, I just remember seeing that VHS box cover, and it just was burned into my brain, and I was just like fascinated by it, and it was like this thing that I wanted to see for so long, and then when I finally saw it when I was 14, it just like did everything for me. It was really funny. We were in LA last year, and our friend had gotten the Thing board game, and Alix was he was like, I've been waiting to play this because I needed Alix here because Alix will go through all the rules because it's got a lot of rules to it. And like the game is like filled with like little quotes. And so I was just like, every time like a quote would come up, I would read it out, you know, like really enthusiastically. And then at one point, because there's a bit where you accuse people of being the Thing. And I was just like, this thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside a copy. I just went in like a big, and one of our friends just looks at me and goes, "You really like this movie, don't you?"
You're like, why do you think I have a massive tattoo?
Yeah, I have a massive tattoo of the Thing.
Oh, that's cool. It was my first Grandpa Gooey, as far as I'm aware, because I've been watching movies since I was like 4 or 5. But I think it's the first time I was like, David Cronenberg does this. Jeff Goldblum is gross now. So yeah. No,
in answer to that question, then not it being this year, but in general, I would say a big horror movie for me, I'll keep it short, don't worry, is Misery.
Yes.
The one with you know the one.
Kathy Bates. Yes.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's just brilliant. And like I think that's it, is I've really recognized like the spectrum, and like there's so much of it that I'm interested in. So I do love a bit of build up tension, like edge of your seat, what's gonna happen situation. So yeah, that's my answer.
It's just so tense, and it's also weirdly timely with the way that stan culture is going for a lot of celebrities. So yeah,
I can imagine. Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely there's people who would definitely love to keep Taylor Swift in you know, locked up
yes,
Colorado.
Yeah.
No, like Beyonce, like just name any billionaire basically, which is ironic, but whatever. That's a whole different podcast.
What about you, Sheree?
Not yet. Like nobody knows me well enough to want to like keep me in a closet and like take a foot. Like it's just I'm pretty safe.
I meant your current favorite.
Oh, okay, that's different. I think right now I am back into the coffee table. Have you seen the coffee table?
Yeah. I haven't seen it yet, but you have.
Yeah.
It is the bleakest, darkest comedy that there ever was, because once the thing happens, you're like, ah! And then you're still in it, and you can't help but laugh. You're like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be laughing, but also this is funny, but also the stakes are like in the sky. Like there's just.
I think my Letterboxd review was, you got to respect the commitment to the bit.
Yes. yes, you get me. No, I kind of love that movie. And I want to watch it again. But like, actually, no, it is on Tubi now, so I'm going to watch it again. This is a reminder. Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah. So, what's your favorite subgenre?
So I know that we had a little chat about this while we were waiting to get into Abigail together, which seemed kind of apt, given that my favorite subgenre, especially in horror, is dance horror, which there's not that many films that fit that bill, but I'm looking to fill those slots.
I loved when you shared that though, because I was like, this is going to be an article. And I was like, there's only like 8. There's only 8.
I know, it's like not that many. I mean, for me, the top 3 are probably, and I have to lead with Black Swan because I think that was a turning point for me. That's just like a perfect movie to me. I don't care what anyone says. And then I love Noé's Climax.
I need to see that one.
Rob as well. It's great. It's trippy AF, but yeah, it's wild. And then I would say bits of the new Suspiria. Like I like about half of the new Suspiria.
So I saw the new one before the original, and so I was like, "Oh, this is good." And then I saw the original, like, "Oh no, this didn't need to. We didn't need to be all out here this long. We could have had less Tilda Swintons."
Exactly. You know, they tried something with Tilda Swinton and as man. It didn't really work for me, but I was like, "Hey, Dakota Johnson and like everyone, that mirror sequence,
yes,
wow." So yeah, that mirror sequence is probably like the subgenre I'm into.
Yes, it's perfect. We want more of that. Yes.
I think I for years I've been trying to kind of figure out how to best define this kind of subgenre, and I basically refer to it as we found a thing with a thing inside it, and it's like it's kind of like Event Horizon, Sphere, you know, the Abyss. Sphere. You know, it's always like it's either like under the sea or in space, and they're like, there's an abandoned thing here. We're gonna send a crack team of people to go investigate it. Then they get to the thing, they're like, what happened here? Why is everybody dead? What's going on? And then they find like a box or a sphere or an egg or a thing, and then they're like, oh, bad things happened here, and then everything goes crazy. And I feel like there was like a spate of these in the 90s.
Yes.
And I just remember so many of them. And yet, like, there was a lot of like facility-based movies. Because even if you talk about, say, something like, maybe that's it. Because even like, maybe I'd like to put like Deep Blue Sea or something in that as well. Like, yes. Just movies that are based in facilities where people are like, oh shit, we got to get out of here now because the bad thing happened and now we have to leave. And then they're all going to get knocked off one by one, and there'll only be a couple of people left at the end. That's what I like, you know, things in facilities, and I want to see more of that. I think Underwater is the most recent one I could think that kind of fit into that.
I need to see that one still because yes, I am also here for this, and it goes back to your love of The Thing because they are definitely in the facility doing their job when you're like, oh no, alien. Like it's a tale as old as time, but it almost always is effective, almost always because there's always a few people.
Like a good locale, I think is what I would say.
Yeah, no, I'm into that. I like that. Yeah. When did you know you wanted to work in film, and what was that journey like for each of you? Because
interesting. Well, I would say for me, working in film like came originally because I started as an actress, like a lot of people do. So that I knew I specifically wanted to act in film, though. Like the only thing I was able to do was theater because I was in Switzerland at the time, and there weren't that many like opportunities. So I was like, okay, I'll do this, but the idea is that I want to be in Jurassic Park. Like, I wanted to be the next Jean Grey.
You didn't just want to be in Jurassic Park. You wanted to be in the Lost World Jurassic Park.
Yeah, but because of the caravan scene.
Yeah.
So we're speaking action, tension, again, all the things we know and love. But then the other one was definitely, we've been rewatching the original X-Men movies recently. And I was like, I remember being like, I want to be Jean Grey one day when she's playing Dark Phoenix. That's who I want to be, is my aspiration. So that whole journey started. And we still act, we still do the thing. I'm actually going to be in a short film at Seachers, which was a proof of concept film by our good friend Bobby Rowe, who was in, if you move your head, we made Isolation.
Oh yes! Oh my god, that's such a small world.
And Bobby Rowe made a segment of that. So he was like, hey, would you do me a favor and be in my short? And I was like, yeah, sure. Having no idea that this proof of concept was going to end up on the festival circuit. So now I'm going to teach as an actress, which is very strange for me because I've basically had a 5-year break of being an actress. But we love it. I'm here for it. Anyone wants to cast me as someone who dies horribly, that's my favorite thing to do. So,
Right.
yeah. But that's how I ended up going into it. And then again, met this one, and he was like, hey, do you want to come make movies? Come to the dark side. We have cookies. And I was like, great. Yeah, awesome. And then he was like, do you also want to get married? I'm like, yeah, fine. To be fair, I proposed. I don't know. I don't even know. I proposed to him. So it's all a mess, and it all ends up being cinema, and our life revolves around cinema. So there you go.
I just like I genuinely can't like really remember a time when I didn't, love movies and want to make movies. It was just it's like, I just watched so many movies as a kid, and I was just obsessed with movies, and and I just like it just I remember my father had these encyclopedias because this was kind of before, or I wasn't going on the internet and going on IMDb or anything like that. They were like physical, like giant block encyclopedias. And I would just, because I would ask him questions like, oh, like what other movies has this guy been in? Or is there any movies like this? And he would just go like he got tired of like trying to answer the questions. He just like, just go look it up in the movie encyclopedia.
I love that.
And so it would literally be, I would be like, so it was like at the time I remember too, because I was living in New Mexico, John Carpenter was making vampires out there.
Yes.
So I saw John Carpenter also made The Thing. So then I'd be like, okay, what other movies has John Carpenter made? And then I go to the video store and be like, I'd have like a list, and I'd be like, can I find this one? Can I find this one? And it became like almost like a collector thing. Like I wanted to try and like I would find someone I liked, and then I'd want to watch all of their movies. And it just kind of like it just
little baby nerd.
Yeah, it just kind of spiraling. And then like it was like that weird thing of, I remember being in this Spanish class where we had to like do movie posters in Spanish. It was like an exercise. And somebody was doing a poster for Alien, and they were like, oh, who's in Alien? I was like, Sigourney Weaver, Tom Skerritt, Harry Dean Stanton, Ian Holm. And they just look at me like, why do you know that? I was like, I mean, it's directed by Ridley Scott. It's written by Dan O'Bannon. Like, do you want to know more? They're like, they were like, why do you know this stuff? And it was just like this weird thing of me going like, I kind of just thought everybody knew this stuff. I didn't realize it was weird to know this stuff.
Does this speak to your experience as well then, Sheree?
Yes. We did not have a computer for so many random and wild reasons. But we did have access to movies. So I would be like, John Carpenter did Halloween, he did this, he did that, Wes Craven did this, and he did that. And I was a smarter person before I got online, because now I could just Google things and like, tell me what it is. Yeah. But back then
anymore.
Right? Like kids today don't understand what it's like having to like remember phone numbers and names.
Also, like the hustle of like going to the video store and going like, what can I get the most value out of here? Like, what am I like looking at the boxes and then turning over the box and like looking at like the pictures, and you kind of go, yeah, sure, the poster for Ice Cream Man looks good, but on the back, the photos look dodgy. Do I really? What is this? What is this thing?
It's worth noting that we didn't have lovely reviewers like yourself to rely on to give us a good idea of what we were in for. You know what I mean? It was Wild West.
Yeah. Crazy. It was the Wild West. You turn on the TV and it would just be like a random movie, and you don't even know what it is, because how do you find out what has already started on like whatever basic cable you got? So you're like, they have sharks and it's a ship, so I need to remember that, and because I see it elsewhere, so I know what it's called.
I miss I do kind of miss the like the TNT sort of thing of just like you switch on, you're kind of like, I don't know, Mel Gibson's doing something. I guess I'll watch this for 40 minutes, see what happens.
TNT is the reason I read my first novel as a tween. It was Salem's Lot, because they were pushing Salem's Lot on TNT that night. I did not understand TNT would show up for the next 2 weeks. So I was like, I have to finish this novel now. And I did. And I found out that movies and novels are not always the same thing. So many lessons learned that summer.
Can I say a movie that I think is super underrated, which is basically also a horror, even though it's not marketed like that?
Yes.
Have you ever seen Perfume Story of a Murderer?
I've not, but it's on my list. I've heard good things.
I love that movie so much.
Like, there are so many movies that should be under the horror umbrella, but for whatever reason, the powers that be were like, no, it's a psychological drama. That's code for horror. Just say it's a horror.
Well, Alix is in it. That's already a plus.
I'm
but
a great.
So Ben Whishaw, and it's just it's sumptuous and it's like despicable, and it's just it's brilliant.
I'm a great believer in horror being a big tent. I think everybody should be under it. I mean, one of my big examples is always that I would count Twilight as horror because it's vampires and werewolves. And you know what? Teenage girls need stuff as well. And some of those teenage girls are going to watch that weird pregnancy bit with Bella and be like, fuck, I want to see more shit like that. And they'll end up like going and watching Cronenberg movies and, you know, getting into Stuart Gordon and other stuff like that. And eventually Julia Deschanel, you know, and it's like, stuff like that allows people to get in. You need gateway stuff. So to me, it's like it's all a big umbrella. I love it.
Yeah, no, and a lot of people don't get that. Like, I feel like I have this battle on Twitter all the time because people are like, Blade is not a horror movie. It's a Marvel movie. I'm like, it's a Marvel horror movie. He's a vampire fighting other vampires. We open with a blood rave. What else do you need to make it a horror movie?
You know what you should say to those people? You should say some motherfuckers are still trying to I skate uphill. That's what you should say.
Listen. Wisdom is chasing you, but you've always been faster is one of my favorite things to come out of the internet recently. New rant. What's one piece of advice you'd give to filmmakers coming up behind you? Because you are kind of doing the things. You have your company, you're making your movies. I forgot to tell you, I did see Sucker in a festival before I met you, and that's why your name looked familiar. Because I was like, this name looks familiar. Yeah.
And you're like, but why?
Right?
Yeah, that's so nice though. You know, it's like with shorts, it's really difficult to know like how far it's gone. Like it did go to like 44 festivals or something, but I didn't get to go to most of them. So because we were too busy making Kill Your Lover. So it was like a good excuse, but so I'm so glad that you got to see it. That's really fun.
No, like it made so much sense because I was like, now that I've seen Kill Your Lover and I've seen Sucker, I'm like, oh yes. The vibes are immaculate. Look,
you have a first.
I mean, I suppose I think that the big thing for me is that you just kind of have to figure out your point where you just are willing to just go, fuck it, we don't need permission, we're just going to go do it. And I think like that's the real struggle because I think like at the moment, I think we're still living in this world where we kind of think that like, oh, if we just make the right short and it's seen by the right person, somebody will turn up. And we talk about this fallacy, the man with the cigar, like, you know, when you're watching like the movie biopic and the person does the show and then this guy comes out of the back and he's like, kid, I love your moxie. I want to cut a record with you. You know, we're all kind of waiting for that. Like we'll show our short at a festival, and the man with the cigar will show up and kind of like be like, "I'm going to give you a feature," and it just
I also think it just feed into like that chosen one narrative that I think we get fed a lot, and like you want to believe it's true. And don't get me wrong, it is true for 0.01% of people. Like it does happen, but those are the only people you hear about, and I think that's it. Is like. I guess I'd go off the back of that and say it is about the graft and more than anything. I know everyone always says it's about networking, but I think it's more specifically about you taking an active interest in finding your people. And like, you're going to have to find a different approach. That doesn't necessarily mean, go into a big room of just random strangers because I always thought, oh God, I'm never going to make it because I can't do that because I'm like way too awkward a turtle. But like as time has gone on, you know, you find your people and then you go to those things together or you go to a specific event that's going to help you. And like, it's just I think it's just being smart about your networking rather than just sort of doing a scattergun shot, if that makes sense. Use your sniper rifle.
Yes. You have to you have to be yourself and you have to figure out who's about whatever you are. I love that. Yeah. So how did Switchblade Cinema come to be? And also, please tell our listeners, our viewers, I guess this is YouTube, about where that name came from, because I know, and I was very happy you told the audience that Overlooked.
So Switchblade came about messily, as most things do. Even if it looks shiny on the outside, it was probably, the whole swan thing where it's like it looks nice on the top, but there's a lot of feet paddling going on underneath. So, I mean, are you mostly asking because of the name or because of the company?
Both. Like, I would love to know, like, when did you know you were going to
not answer the question? Off in this direction. Yeah, I mean, basically, Keir had his own company banner, I guess you'd say, that you were working under. He'd made a lot of music videos. That's when I first met him. And then I had my own company for a while, and we were doing our own things. I was starting to make short films and, like, learn stuff, film stuff. And yeah, eventually we were like, oh, we kept listing both companies, and we were like, should we probably make a company together? But it wasn't even Switchblade at that point. It was some weird, overly complicated name that I came up with.
That was really overthought.
It was so overthought. It was called Hydroholics Productions.
Oh.
So it was like Hydra, many hats, many heads, but also workaholics. But then you say hydroholics, it sounds like hydraulics. And I'm like, what are we, a water company? And like, no one knew how to spell it. And so at a certain point, so it was when we did Isolation, actually, we were still under Hydroholics. And we were just like, this, if we're going to change anything,
we need to
change it now. And yeah, basically it was one of those classic, like a bit like how we try and brainstorm like film name ideas. We were like, okay, let's just like start throwing some stuff out. And yeah, the long and short of it, I mean, basically our work together has basically like spanned 10 years now. And it wasn't until year, I don't know, 7 that the name came about, basically. But ostensibly, there's a great new wave French extremity movie called High Tension, or Haute Tension, if you want to do French. But in Britain, it had a different name, which is Switchblade Romance. And so we were like, ooh, Switchblade is a cool name. Maybe we could do something with that. And then eventually we having brainstormed a bunch of stuff, we were like, ooh, Switchblade Cinema, like that kind of rolls off the tongue quite nicely. And so we were like, oh, it pays homage to that, but it's also like in keeping. And then also just the idea of switching things up. Like I often talk about myself having grown up in Switzerland as well as a Swiss Army knife. So I'm like, oh, switching blades, blah, 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 that kind of thing. Like we're the tool for any job, basically.
I also just weirdly, because I always saw it as the movie is Switchblade Romance. That was how I saw it in cinemas, and it's always been Switchblade Romance to me. And it's just really funny that basically no one calls it that anymore. Like even in this country, it's not really called that anymore. True. And it's one of those like great titles that I'm kind of like, I feel like I want to make a movie called Switchblade Romance just to reclaim the title.
Because it's such a good title. Like when I found out we were robbed and got High Tension, I was very upset. It made me like resent the movie a little bit. I'm like, you were called this and now you're called this. No. I feel the same for Blink Twice, which had an amazing title, and they were like, change it. And I was like, no.
So what was it called again?
Pussy Island.
Pussy Island, that was it. Yeah. Well, you kind of go. I mean, Amy Adams is a night bitch, so you feel like they could have kept Pussy Island. Yeah,
especially because it tells you so much about the world, even before you step in. And so I'm just like, no, you really like blocked her shot with that one. You should let her keep that title. It's a great movie, and I think most people would have saw it with that title, because I was basically alone in the theater when I saw it 2 weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
We're still hoping to catch it. It's just been too busy, so we're just like,
find me when you do, because the more I sit with it, the more I like it. Yeah.
That's great. That's really good news.
Yes. So we're going to talk about your movie, Kill Your Lover, which is the reason that I definitely latched onto you because I was like, what is this? Yes. I still have stickers over there because I I did unpack things. I just didn't put them anywhere yet. But like right, someday I'm gonna like be a person. But this movie, I really responded to it, and I was just wondering, how did the two of you come up with an idea for a body horror breakup movie? Like, that's very original.
Do you want to?
There's some practical sort of reasoning, to a certain extent. It's like, we were trying to make a movie for very little money, so we needed something that we could do in one location with minimal actors. And the thing that's great about makeup effects and fake blood is it's fairly cheap, and it's a great way to create sort of like good set pieces and interesting stuff. And so after that, it's like, okay, what can we do to make something that's actually engaging rather than just sort of like corny and cheap. So originally the idea was kind of like, I always had this kind of thought about, wouldn't it be weird if you were just like trapped in a house with one zombie? Like, because it's like, we always see like zombie movies, people like mowing down tons of zombies. But like the idea of like, if you had to actually do battle with one zombie, it would actually be pretty like, it probably like take a while, be pretty long. And so as we were sort of like thinking about that, we were like, well, it's more interesting if the character has some sort of connection to the zombie, like as in like it's a brother, sister, or a boyfriend, or, and then as you kind of go, you're like, well, it's more interesting if like there's some turn, like the person, you don't start off as a zombie, then they have to become it. So like the idea was then, they come home and they're bitten and they're turning into a zombie for most of the film. And then they have to like do battle with them. And then you're like, well, actually, once they turn into a zombie, they're kind of limited. Like zombies aren't that, they don't, they lose a lot of personality. They lose a lot of drama at that point. And then it was also kind of like, that's the final point kind of went like, well, the thing that becomes engaging is how can what's happening to this character be inform something within their relationship and something within their dynamic. So at that point, that's when it just fully transformed from being a person fighting a zombie to somebody dealing with their boyfriend who's going through this sort of transformation and turning into a monster, and what that means about their relationship. And I think that was kind of that's kind of the genesis of it. And so we wrote a first draft, and the really interesting point was immediately Alix really came back with the sort of notion of like we were almost too much just on the side of Dakota, because like at the time she was just ostensibly the lead, and it was very much like Dakota is dealing with her asshole boyfriend, and then eventually it's about her trying to overcome her asshole boyfriend. And you were just kind of like, it's more interesting if it's more of an even-handed dynamic. We get more drama out of it. So then we started rewriting it, really trying to like even out like the playing field and make them just as culpable as each other within the relationship.
I think the thing is, like, we could have very easily made quite a straightforward film where it is just about Dakotas, and that would have worked perfectly fine too. I think ultimately we both just saw like the opportunity to make something a little bit more interesting. And it's like not as easy as, there's just like one thing that's like breaking them up. It is just more this notion of death by 1,000 cuts, which I think is actually what more people go through than that one inciting incident. I mean, that can be the breaking point for a lot of people, and it's what they hang a lot of things up on. But it's just like, I think we ended up being more interested in that. And then of course we have a huge interest in body horror anyway. And we wanted to put what money we did have into the effects, into the sound. In particular, sound for us is like, it's just key. And I think, in the end, we thankfully didn't bite off more than we could chew, so that we were then able to like fully finish something in a way where people hopefully won't actually be able to tell how much it was made for. That actually just sort of stands on its own 2 feet. So I think that's actually part of the advice as well that I would give, is to write within your means, in the sense of know what you're focusing on, because you can have lots of location changes, but you might not be able to do as many like cool kills, which I think it's fair to say we have a pretty cool kill in
Yes.
ours, that
Yes, we
we're
do.
pretty proud of. So, you know, it's like we wanted to have our cake
Yeah.
and eat it too, to an extent. So, you know, that's what we ended up with.
I love that. And we would definitely talk about Dakota's journey, but I also appreciated that we got to see a situationship on screen, because usually it's just like we're all in love and everything's perfect, and now one of us is wrong. And like you said, a death by 1,000 paper cuts. A lot of the time, it is two people who were not meant to be, making each other into something that they're not going to be, and nobody wants to quit. And I think that a lot of media gives us this messaging that you have to stick it out no matter what, which is it's very broadcast TV 1960s. um, and I think it's part of the reason why a lot of people today are just like, I can't quit this person, I can't quit this job, I can't quit these circumstances, because society is telling me forever to just stick it out.
Yeah, well, and you don't realize, before you know it, you've created a monster. Like, the relationship you have has become a monster, but neither of you wants to necessarily recognize it or break it apart. Because it's not to say that you can't, like, tame the monster, but, like, that's going to take a lot of work. So, you know, it's like, yeah, just our approach to this film definitely was just dialing everything up to 11 for sure.
And it works. I really love that, like, Dakota has finally figured out today's the day to end it. Her friend, who I love, is like, you need to really end it. I've been over your shit for a while. And I'm like, I feel seen as that friend. And I love that life is throwing things at her, as life often does when we're ready to end something and start a new chapter. It's just like all these things appear. And so it's easy to just stay. And so I was just like really here for this journey. And I was wondering, like, is this character based on someone or something specifically? Like, what is the genesis of this character? Because she is kind of, again, she's messy, but I love her. And it's definitely some of her fault, but I love her.
Yeah, she's definitely a person, and I think that's something that definitely speaks to both of us anyway. Like, a lot of the lead characters in any of our films really have been female. And one of the things I talk about a lot is I hate the term strong female characters so much.
Yes.
Give us complex female character like any day of the week. That's what I personally want to see. I think it's what quite a few people want to see. I think people say strong and then it gets sort of like turned into some weird, oh, now she's perfect and you can't pick her apart kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, women still need to be allowed to be people, basically. And like, what I like about Dakota so much is she's got that punk rock energy. She's not quite figured herself out either. And the fact that she's able to go from being, you know, in her own way, a little quite selfish with like a few things, is the whole process takes her on this journey where maybe she does have a little point of realization towards the end and sees her part in things a little bit more. But can you say the exact question again? So I'm like,
oh, what was the genesis of this character? Like,
the genesis of the character. Oh, and whether it's based on anything specific.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, Dakota was based on the idea of a person that we know, but that person's journey didn't end up being Dakota's journey. They've actually gone and actually seemed to have like not fixed things, but like figured things out. And like, I think she's based on a few people we know.
I think
Like,
she's
a
based on more
conglomerate.
like a circumstance that we see in a lot of people.
And we've definitely witnessed it, like, in process.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not it ended up going the way of Splitsies or not, it's like kind of by the by, because it still played true to a lot of what we've witnessed. And I think that's it, is like we were and have gone for painfully relatable over everything else.
Yes.
Like, brutally specific.
Well, I think we saw quite a few people in the circumstance of essentially two people who saw what they wanted to see in the other person, rather than, like, you know, Axel sees Dakota as this cool, creative, sort of interesting, intriguing girl, and he doesn't want any of the messiness. He just wants to believe in this kind of like artistic free spirit, and that appeals to him.
And that she might make him a little bit more cool.
Yeah.
Sort of by proxy, like unlocking maybe a side of him, like putting a lot of responsibility on her in a way.
Whereas she sees in him this kind of actual stable guy that should be the type of guy that she should be with, rather than a lot of like the messy people she's been with before. And the thing is that they're more into the idea of the other person rather than the personality of the other person.
And they don't grow together.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. No, like they definitely approach each other like two people looking at a fixer-upper, and people are not houses. You're purchasing what you get, and that is a lesson I think a lot of people just forget, which is why we see a lot of things in our friend circles and our families.
It's so hard to like extricate and like recognize your own bullshit as well within it, and like what weird like narratives you're fulfilling yourself. Like, it's wild, and things change. You know, we've been together 12 years. Like, I don't know where we'll be in 10 years. Do you know what I mean? Like, things are changing all the time, and I think choosing each other every day is so important.
And hey, I'll be quite frank. One of Alex and I's guilty pleasures is we watch Love Is Blind, and it's like, if you watch Love Is Blind, it is fucking insane. Just like what like weird trips those people are on, where they are just never listening to each other. They are just making so many assumptions, and they are letting their own internal shit completely fuck up everything that's going on.
Yeah. I watched the first season with roommates in lockdown because we were all on Netflix. And so I remember this woman who she matched with somebody, and then like after they like revealed who was who, he was younger than her. And every time she spoke, he was like, "Well, he's younger than me. Well, he's younger than me. In the family. Well, he's younger than me. How do you feel about that?" And I was like, "It sounds like you're insecure. You should just say."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're not trusting this process that you say, like, "Oh yeah, the experiment." And I'm just like, okay.
Right?
I mean, to be fair, it's reality TV. What are we talking about at the end of the day? But you know.
We all watch it. One show or the other, we're all watching something reality TV, and then we're just like, "That's my fast food for the day. Thank you." Like, yeah.
Sometimes you got to switch your brain off. That's true.
Listen, especially in unprecedented times like our entire lifetime. The perfect time to switch your brain off. So one thing I really, really enjoyed about this movie when I caught it at Overlook is that it feels like everybody spoke, which is a rarity, because you have a lot of movies where it's just like none of the designers talk to the director didn't talk to the actors, we're all making a different movie. I did not get that feeling from this, which is another reason why I sort of leaned into it, because I'm just like, no, they know who is doing what and where. They've all spoken. An intimacy coordinator has been through here. This music is coming from somewhere. I'm wondering, how did you orchestrate it all? Because I feel like that's something that a lot of filmmakers could hear your process.
Well, I think it's not unfair to say that probably a lot of that comes from the fact that we directed, wrote, produced, and edited the film ourselves as well. So there's like definitely a lot of control that came from that. But then also the fact that we lived together, we were basically working on the film together, like pretty much for 2 years straight, like all the time, constantly. So I think, we knew from previous short films, actually, especially working with the special effects department, as well as our composer, like we started conversations early. Like, I believe in fix it and prep, in the sense that I will do as much prep as I possibly can, but more so on any film than ever before. Also had to learn how to pivot hard, but like you do all that preparation with the knowledge that it may well and probably will fall apart, but you'll still be in a much better place if you do that work, and you do work really hard. Because if you have those collaborators on board, and you like not win them over per se, but if you bring them on board, and like with this, very much we were like, this is a ship, and it's a tightly run ship because there's only like 20 of us or something. So like we needed people who felt invested, and I think ultimately that's what we ended up with. And I like to feel like everyone who wasn't us, because there was a lot of us doing like different roles, anyone who wasn't us though, like it was really important to us to like let them feel like they had their say in the project as well, and that we incorporated it in like an organic way. And I think ultimately it just flowed together really well. Because it was contained for again, for a good reason, so that we didn't overstretch too much.
And I think because our entire creative process is inherently a collaboration, I think we're quite keen on, really exercising that, ability to collaborate with others. And I think also to being able to even divide up and take like more of a reign in certain things in the collaborative process was really good as well. Alix acted as like the voice, when talking to the actors, and it was able to give like a really sort of like strong, sort of like, face to our partnership, and really be able, I mean, you speak actor basically is the way
the one thing I can write on my CV is I speak.
It's like I would say things like, I feel like
they should talk better.
They should like be like doing it like louder, do you know what I mean? And then how would you interpret that?
No, I think you're being very disingenuous towards yourself.
Probably.
You're actually very good with actors, hence why we're together.
But I think even like, like speaking to say things like, the music, like, I would say that that's a case where I've got a pretty good, knowledge of like film scores. So I will go and I will kind of like be like, here's a list of film scores. What do you think of these ones? And I like this one. And then we send those to Tib, and we're kind of like, this is where our inspiration is coming from. This is kind of like what we're thinking here. And then even when it comes to say things like, the intimacy scenes or the fight choreography, we had very strong ideas going into that of how we wanted to shoot that. And we'd also done work before that we could point to and go, this is the style thing. Like like one of the things we actually did for the intimacy scenes is we essentially created a reel of scenes from other movies, not all horror movies. Like a lot of them were things like, The Worst Person in the World and stuff like that, where it was about kind of like showing, really good, like sort of like sensitive, intimate, sort of scenes without it feeling too salacious and exploitative, but feeling very real.
I think the main thing that I could say to that point is like, it was very important for us to work with an intimacy coordinator also because all of the things we wanted to put in place were essentially I think as an actor, it's so useful to know why you're doing what you're doing, because you can act your socks off. But there's just something about knowing where you're going. So like we definitely wanted to make sure that there was a journey for them in that like there's like a sequence that's about 10 minutes long that tracks, in at least to us, we know that it was supposed to track the first 6 months of their relationship. Now, whether that reads specifically, it doesn't really matter because the actors embodied it in such a great way. So then we were able to take all of that work that you'd done with the reel and then what we came up with how we were tracking the relationship, and take that to the actors, take that to the intimacy coordinator to say, this is why this is happening. And I think that's also why we were able to do all of it in one day, because that was what we could afford, but also because we had done so much prep, because we wanted people to come into it with confidence. And I think that really reads. And I think it's also something that people respond to, which we're super happy with. And I think that's actually a good example of like what we brought into the other departments as well. Because we were like, hey, we know we don't have a lot of time. I know we don't have a lot of money. So the least we could do is know what we're talking about.
No, it definitely reads on screen, because I think it's one of the few movies I've seen this year where I'm just like, we're actually doing something with these intimate moments. Somebody handled this with care. It was very much like, I knew you had intimacy coordinator from those moments before I saw the credits, because it was so influenced and it was so comfortable, and the actors were able to act instead of worrying about other things. Because it reads. I think it reads when you have an intimacy coordinator or a fight choreographer who is not up to the task. And so you see lots of movies where things are a little bit wonky, especially when it comes to a fight sequence. And you're just like, oh no, that was not anywhere near that actor. What is this? And so again, I think it just is a testament to how well you two work together, that everybody was on the same page. And so at no point was I like, oh no, who hired so-and-so? It feels like a real team effort. So I'm happy to hear that it's because collaboration still works and prepping still works. My little stage manager heart.
Prep is such an interesting thing too, even. It's just like little things like, we made Spotify playlists that were what Axel or Dakota would listen to, you know, just to give them. So with like Dakota, it's all like, you know, pop punk music, or like hardcore 80s punk, or, you know, or like Riot Girl, you know, music. And then with Axel, it's kind of like, it's more a combination of sad boy songs and Jim Bro kind of like pumped up tracks,
EDM,
you know, so it's like, and it's just to give them something. It's like, even if they listen to it once and don't imbibe any of it, and it's at least it gives the actor that feeling, we're thinking about it, we're taking it seriously, so, you know, we encourage you to be thinking about it in the same sort of way. Because that's the thing, is if they come back to us and go, I don't feel like, from the way I see the character is different, that's good, because at least it means they're thinking about the character, they're thinking about stuff, you know. It's about putting those little touches in that give people room to be able to actually sort of invest in the project.
Yeah, no, I love that, because it helps ground them and it helps build this world. So us as the audience are not just like, that felt flat. We get to be like, these feel like lived in people in a lived in situation. And so it's easier transportation for us. My favorite question, which I forgot to put onto this document, so sorry about that. What is one thing that you've been dying to talk about on this movie and you've not been asked?
Ooh, that's actually a really good question.
Oh no.
I'm mad I left it off. I've not been sleeping, so I'm not at my best. So I'm gonna just stall so you can think, because I surprised you with this one.
That's a really good question.
It's a really, really good question. Because I get like, sometimes I like interview myself and I'm like, I'm never gonna ask.
I suppose one of the things that I mean, I have something so you can think about some of.
Please do.
So I suppose like the thing that I really kind of want to talk about that I never get to talk about is the flashback sequences are really heavily inspired by Tony Scott. Because so like the bit so the argument sequence at the end that's intercut with the fight, you'll see these kind of like changing camera stocks where it's like we're going from like extreme slow motion to like distortion images to kind of like this really frenetic camera that's moving around. And part of that is I'm just like, I really I just always love like Tony Scott's weird off-kilter like visuals, especially when he gets like super experimental, like Man on Fire and stuff like that. And we always kind of say like three of our biggest inspirations are Brian De Palma, Lynn Ramsey, and Tony Scott. And I just like, and I just kind of wanted something of that kind of like level of chaos where you could just like, so we would shoot those, because all of those arguments are done, they're improvised. We basically just say to the actors, okay, you just went to have dinner with his mom and she didn't talk to you the entire time. Go. And then they have to, and they would just argue for 5 minutes and we'd have a camera just moving around them constantly. And then we'd do it again, but we would be like, because we'd be shooting in slow motion, we'd go, okay, you're arguing at him, but you can't respond. So we'd only just film his reactions while he's like reacting to everything she's saying. But it's like, you also watch the frustration of him not being able to say anything back. And then we'd do another take where we'd go, I just have the camera, we'd be taking the lens on and off the camera and just getting these like light leaks and all of this kind of like weird stuff. And so, so the two big inspirations for that are Tony Scott and then also the editing in JFK, which was really funny because we were talking to, I was talking to the filmmaker Michael Felker, who made Things Will Be Different. Like he was, so, you know, he's a friend of ours and he was in London, and it was really funny because he was talking about like how he had used JFK as a reference point to somebody in terms of editing. I think he was saying he had used it when talking to Benston Moorhead about the editing in Something in the Dirt. It's like that was like kind of the inspiration point. And I said to him, I was like, JFK is kind of the inspiration for the editing in the fight scene in Kill Your Lover, and we just had like this nice kind of shared moment. So that is my. It was
a really insane sequence. I remember like just coming back and him being like, "Yeah, still haven't cracked it. I don't know how to do this."
It was so hard to do. because we love our composer and we trust in him so much, we almost never edit to temp music. We always kind of trust him to kind of like find it. But it was the one thing that basically I couldn't edit unless I had some kind of like beat or like rhythm to it. So we actually edited it to the music from Requiem for a Dream, where everything's kind of like going like it's cutting between all of them, and just having that kind of allowed me to have some kind of rhythm to the whole thing. But it was just that sequence, like that was the one that kind of did my head in.
I'm trying to like get you some editing awards. I don't know, we'll see. But I guess I would say the thing I think about a lot, and I think especially given like the conversations we've had around the film and just in general, like I'd really love to have a sort of really like empathetic conversation with someone about the sexuality of the film, because I think it's very easy to make assumptions, I guess. And I feel like some people have responded really well, don't get me wrong. And this isn't like to complain about it or anything like that. I think it's actually like, I would just love to have an actual like conversation with someone about like what's going on in the media at the moment with stuff where like, why can't we have things be sexy? Why does everything need to be labeled exploitative or having the male gaze and all this kind of stuff, where it's like it feels like mainstream media anyway is like drawing away from sexiness. And I know that supposedly this has something to do with like Gen Z not liking it very much, which is fine, but I just think it's like people running scared. And I think one of the things that I find interesting, and one of the things we were looking to explore with the film, I suppose, is this idea of empowered female sexuality as well, rather than it just being like she has wants and needs and interests. And it's not just, oh, sex is something to be afraid of, which I think is something that comes into films quite a lot. So I guess that in general, but I feel like it's such an open, like bleeding heart potential conversation as well, that it could go in a million directions. So like I would never want to make anyone uncomfortable or anything like that as well. But I do think one of the things that I personally like about Dakota a lot is that and something that I actually did get an audience member approach me about after our screening at Brooklyn that I'm still really grateful for, is that they said, you know, thank you for putting a submissive, an empowered submissive in a film, because a lot of the time like submissives are painted as having, you know, like big issues that have led them to wanting to have people like inflict pain on them or anything like that. And the truth is, like, if you're in a properly functioning relationship where that is a part of your like situationship, whatever it may be, is like, you know, in theory, the submissive is the one that's in control, not the other way around. So it's just those nuances, you know, that like, that I just find fascinating, and I think, you know, don't get explored enough. We just do, oh, and sex is love, and you pat each other, and you're like, we made love.
And if you're doing anything other than sort of like, you know, nice missionary, then you're a terrible, you know, you're a pervert and you're doing terrible things.
Which is why we need more skillfully handled sex scenes, which is another reason why I was very happy that I instantly clocked there's been help here. There was conversations here. This is not feeling just like gross and gratuitous. We're influencing these characters. We're showing relationship, because like you said, a lot of Gen Z is afraid of sex. And I'm just like, I don't understand what's going on with the youth. Because in my day, we were not afraid of it. If anything, we were a little bit too comfortable running towards it. And so there has to be a happy middle ground. So like they're not doing what we were doing, but also it's very much giving, we only want PG-13 movies. And I'm just like, that's not a way to live.
I actually honestly don't know if it is down to Gen Z. I just keep being told it's down to Gen Z. And I think what I would say, like personally, I was quite scared of sex. And so I think that's it, is like, I think there is actually a responsibility there to not demonize sex.
Yes.
I mean, people say this about Gen Z, but they're all watching Euphoria and then tweeting about how annoyed they are about it, you know? So it's like, but they're still watching it. So it's kind of like, I don't know.
They're getting their education from somewhere. So it might as well be good education.
Listen, because we need to open the schools We need to open the schools and the libraries immediately. But like, what is next for both of you and Switchblade Cinema? Because I know that you do things independently and together. So feel free to let us know where to find you.
In the first instance, we're definitely looking to continue to do the co-directing thing. So we're a directing team primarily. We have 4 feature film scripts written, and shopping around. 2 of them are in more of a go stage than like the other 2, and so we're just sort of finagling and doing our thing, seeing whether we can expand our team a little bit so that we don't have to do 10 roles each on the next one. Growing, just next time instead of 99% we'll do instead of 80% we'll do 75%.
I love that for you.
We'll see. But no, I mean, two very exciting things. Both very much in the genre space. I think we've been talking a lot about how we love action and how we would love to combine that with genre, but also how we want to lean more maybe into like the sort of more vibesy side of things, so that it's like just like the temperature changes a little bit and that people can see like a different side to the craziness in our minds.
I think it's that kind of thing of we definitely don't want to go away from what we have with Kill Your Lover, but we just want to make it bigger and more complicated and more kind of and also maybe even just a little bit more mainstream. Who knows?
We were like, oh yeah, this is totally commercial, and then everything we've been hearing, we're like, oh wait, did we actually make like a house movie?
Did we make a much weirder movie than we thought we made?
Yeah, maybe we're just weird. But like apart from that, I mean, separately speaking, like I'm very interested in like, we've talked a little bit about obsession with sound and like all that kind of situation. And I would say our very good friend and collaborator, basically the 3rd member of Switchblade Cinema, is Thibaut Chavanis, who is our composer. So if you want to check out the soundtrack to Kill Your Lover, that is available on like all platforms. So do check it out. It's very cool. It's very punk rock. It's got like industrial sounds in it, and you'll if you like the movie, you like what's in it, you'll want to listen to it. But speaking of sound, like I'm definitely sort of like tapping into sort of like the immersive space. I'm very interested in doing, virtual reality experiences. So I'm starting to develop some stuff on like the game side of things as well. That's just my own little side quest while we look for money for movies and TV stuff.
Hey.
And you've got photography stuff you do.
Yeah, I just mostly work with you. That's what I do.
Don't be your own person.
I mean, if you want to, I do some photography. It's kind of like more just like my thing. I do. But so if you want to see, it's all kind of very, I'd say kind of like edgy punk rock, kind of erotic, empowered sexuality, kind of.
I mean, if you like the photography in Kill Your Lover, you will like.
All the photography in Kill Your Lover was
all here.
All the photography in Kill Your Lover was done by me.
As we say, work with what you know, with the resources that you have, which is in our case the models who like alt models who like having cool photos taken of them, and they're like, yeah, you can stick us in your movie, that's fine.
Yeah.
And all of the Black Glove Killer, the band that Dakota was part of, that's all a band we made up, and I created the photos and all of the stuff.
Fun but stressful, but fun.
That was basically honestly making its own short film, like basically trying to create all the
we need much for them. People are like, what's the prequel?
Yeah.
No, but like people were like, is it a real band? And you're like, talk back, because like it felt that authentic and it looked that good. They were like, is it a real band? Is she really? And you're like, no. Like,
however, Paige can sing.
Yeah,
we did find out that Paige can sing, so we've got that. And then the drummer was able to drum, but all the other 3 people are just models who look good with guitars.
That's more than some of us have going for us. So like,
and I will say that the closing track that is on the film, and also the heard earlier, which is implied, it was is Dakota's band, is actually by a singer called Susie Moon, which you can go on Spotify and
definitely
find
check
as well.
her out as well.
Yeah.
She's really rad. But yeah, I mean, you may have already mentioned this, I don't know, but Kill Your Liver is on VOD as well in North America. And we're hoping that it will be coming out in Germany and the UK basically early next year. That's kind of like the rough journey for Kill Your Liver. But Americans, Canadians, you can check it out today.
And they definitely should. Because again, who else is giving us a body horror breakup movie with all this nuance and all these conversations? Nobody. So definitely, they should definitely rent that. I am really, really hoping for a physical release because again, I just think that it's really cool and it's really punk. And I think that you would have fun with whatever those extras might be. And I'm greedy, but that's on me. And so
well,
please.
If you've seen the closing credits, then we've got behind the scenes material and stuff like that. You know,
very true. Yeah. Well, if people clamor for it enough, maybe our sales agent will do a physical release as well. Who knows?
Listen, so everybody rent the movie and tweet about it tonight. Thank you, please.
Thank you.
Yes. Where can people find each of you and your company, Switchblade Cinema, online?
Well, I would say Instagram is definitely where we haunt the most for our sins. So if you go to Switchblade Cinema on Instagram, you will find both of our profiles linked in there because one of Keir's great curses in life is his name. No one can spell it, including all the press releases. So usually they spell mine. They manage to get mine right, but still. So I'm Alix.Austin and you're on direct.
I'm Breaking Point Flicks.
You're Breaking Point Flicks again because no one can spell his name.
So Breaking Point Flicks, Breaking Point and Flicks FLIX like Netflix.
And you can't even spell that. But anyway, Switchblade Cinema is the easier. This is why we have a production company that you can spell now. Yeah, that's the easiest way to find us. And yeah, I like to think we're pretty chatty. Yeah. You know, hit us up, say hi, watch the movie.
Especially if you have nice things to say about the movie.
Yeah.
If you have nice things to say about the movie, then we're always chatty.
Listen, like watch it and say nice things on Rotten Tomatoes. So they have that audience score, which is now the popcorn score. I don't know what they did. No. They changed it recently, and it's something. And people should tweet about it and talk about it because that's how the movies that we love get more attention and traction.
Yeah. Just support independent. Support independent cinema full stop, you know, like it's not just us. There's so much cool stuff that people are doing, you know, with very little, and I would argue are doing more interesting stuff than elsewhere. So like the best thing you can do is to support for sure.
Yeah, especially if they have some of those people who love to be like, there's no original ideas, and then see the next Halloween. Like
you don't need to go watch, you know, another adaptation of Salem's Lot or something like that. Just don't watch the movie.
We'll follow Sheree and she will show you the way.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh my God. That's going to help them remember my name because I too have a name and I sometimes just forget to correct people anymore. Like I'm just like, it started with an S. We'll find it.
Wow. You go. S. You got it.
Right. It's all I ask. But yes, I've taken enough of your time because we are on 2 different continents. And so it's definitely later in the day for you. So we're going to wrap this up. Thank you again for being here. Thank you again for making a kick-ass movie. And thank you for being kick-ass people.
Thank you for your wonderful questions as well. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. If you are following A Nightmare on Fear Street, please follow Switchblade Cinema. And again, please rent this movie. Actually, buy it if you can, because you're going to want to own it anyways. That's all I know about that. Everybody, have a great night. Bye.